We care about you at Chevyland.
At Chevyland, the advantage is yours. The Chevyland Advantage. 2 years, no charge scheduled maintenance is included with every new vehicle. And for a limited time, take advantage of 0% APR financing for up to 48 months on select new Chevys. Plus, don't forget, every new vehicle we sell comes with a Chevyland Advantage at no extra charge.
Chevyland cares about you.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another edition of the Louisiana Sports Download presented by Chevyland.com. If you're looking to sell your current vehicle, then you should sell to Cavell. Charlie Cavell is the acquisition manager at Chevyland in Shreveport. Whether you own the vehicle or you're still making payments, Cavell will get you an appraisal and a cash offer today. So go sell to Cavell at Chevyland, 7500 Urey Drive in Shreveport. And at Chevyland.com, where Chevyland, they care about you. Todd Black, how's it going, man? I know you're on the road, so we thank you for joining us. He's, I guess we could say via satellite. I think that sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty classy. Via satellite from Florida, is that right?
Working for the Weather Channel, getting out in front of the hurricane, right?
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah. So, anyways, Todd's on the road, but graciously is back with us this week. We had a great episode with Eric Held last week, and got some insight to the new playoff format, and then what he does for the Coaches Association. So appreciate Eric Held for filling in last week. Todd, man, halfway point of the season this week. We've finally reached week 5. Had a very interesting week 4, Thursday, Friday, Saturday football games and things that happened off the field as well. At first, just some quick thoughts that you noticed over the weekend.
First thing that comes to mind is 2 big games by 2 big running backs, and I'm not even talking about Trey Holly, right? Talking about Anthony Banks. Am I saying it? Last name correct at Booker T. Washington in New Orleans. He had 365 or something yards, just like 6 touchdowns. And then we go to Mangum, and he had 400. Or the number came out a lot larger than it originally was, but that still doesn't take away from the type of game that the kid from Mangum had. And I'm drawing a blank on his name. I want.
Jalen,
that's it. And so
it was Arnold Barnes from Booker T. Washington. I'm sorry,
Barnes. I don't know. I've been calling him Banks, and I knew that didn't sound right, but Barnes. I apologize about that. But in Mangum, they'll have an interesting game coming up this week. We go into week 5, and is it Oak Grove?
It's Oak Grove. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so, Jalen Williams, that's the kid from Mangum. Over 400 all-purpose yards. I think he has 7 touchdowns in the game. So, there were some numbers inflated there for a night, and but they finally got it sorted out. But yeah, no doubt. Just some great performances from around the state. Including the record-breaking night for Trey Holly. But go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry.
I was going to mention, according to GoPreps.com, that's going to put Arnold Barnes at 5th in the state with rushing. Carnell Simmons, who is a very good running back at Ouachita, 6th, and then you have Jalen Williams right there at 7th. But the leader is Elijah Davis at Riverside, and this is at GoPreps.com. I think that was through maybe 3 games. What I saw, is that correct?
Yeah, that was before week 4. Yep.
Okay, and so those guys are going to be over 1,000, both of them. Very impressive through 4 games.
Yeah, no doubt, and just when I was compiling those stats this past week, just amazes me through 3 games what some of these kids are doing right now, and some of them has been against some tough competition as well. So hats off to those kids.
Let me ask you this: how do you compile your stats? Do you need coaches, or you get them from coaches? Do you need them to send them to you, or?
Yeah, so really what I do is from Monday through Wednesday, I will start compiling either like from Robin Fambro and Chris Dabe in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. I'll get numbers from them. But we also reach out to the coaches as well. We'll send them an email. A lot of them are good about emailing right after the game or on Saturday or Sunday after the game. But there's still some that we miss that, and there's a lot of people out there like, hey, my kid's not on there. We really like to accept the official stats from either the coaches or the local newspapers. We try to work with them as much as possible. So, yeah, any coaches listening out there, if you don't, if you haven't been sending your stats, we just need updated season stats. We try to have it by Wednesday afternoon. So, hbauer, BOWER at gopreps.com. Just send those to me, and we'll try to get your kids listed. So, yeah, good idea, Todd. Thank you.
And there's so many cool stories, like some we had on Friday. We were bringing attention to cancer awareness, childhood cancer awareness month, which is September. Stuff. And, the player out at Central who had lost his leg because of a tumor had the opportunity to play a game and with a prosthetic leg. And it's just amazing. I get chills just thinking about it. And then it all came about because a friend of ours who was official, Matt Job's daughter, was diagnosed with cancer a year ago. And that's always, bad news for any family, and all the support we can give them, we'd love to. Absolutely. And those happen to be two good stories of success. And I know there's stories like that all across the state. And those are stories that need to be brought out, and some more of the positive that high school sports brings, opposed to all the negative that's been going on lately.
Yeah, no doubt. And I was able to catch a good bit of that conversation from Friday night and this great stuff. For those who don't know, and I always hate waiting until the end of the broadcast, but Todd and company, they do the Louisiana Prep Scoreboard Friday nights from 10 to midnight, 104.5 FM in Baton Rouge. They're also on Your View, and you can catch them on YouTube. You just go to ESPN 104.5 on YouTube, and it's the Louisiana Prep Scoreboard. Great stuff. They have guests from all over the state. They report the scores as they come in, and just give analysis on the games throughout the night. So I always mean to plug Todd's show during the podcast and not after the podcast. So that I made a point to do that this week.
Well, we appreciate it. And, speaking of coaches across the street, all across the state, we try to get in touch with Coach Baugh from Ruston on Friday night. And he texted back about 12 and said, sorry, there was a wreck. We were trying to find alternate routes to get home because they were down in Lafayette. So we understand sometimes that does happen, but the fact that he responded, it was much appreciated. But we do try to include all the state because there's good football, not just in one area, not just in one class, but all across the state from Class 5A to 1A.
Absolutely. And, let's transition into that, Todd. Let's go over some of the shockers and the not so shocking of week 4. We'll start with that Ruston Lafayette Christian game. I think a lot of people knew it was going to be close. I don't think a lot of people thought that Ruston was just going to come in there and have their way with Lafayette Christian the way they did. I mean, from what I was able to follow throughout the night as we were keeping scores over here at the house, it just seemed like Lafayette Christian got behind and they just could never catch up to Ruston and really the first time all season. Now, is that evidence that Lafayette Christian has just played 3 Class 5A teams before they played Ruston and they were just worn out a little bit? I don't know, but it's been a long time since you've seen Lafayette Christian I don't know what other word to say, manhandled, the way they were by Ruston.
Well, and so we had Trev Falk on after their win versus, was it Brother Martin? The week before, I might be getting them confused, but anyway, and he talked about how they like,
It was a 5A team. That's all right.
But he talked about how he liked to be aggressive. He wants his team to have that mindset. And so a lot of times the pinnacle of being aggressive is playing cover 0 means there's no help in the middle of the field whatsoever. And every defensive back is on an island by themselves. Well, if you can't stop the run playing cover 0, you're in for a long night. Ruston is a heavy run team.
Absolutely.
And with big banging backs. and I didn't get to see the game, but I'd have to think it played out a lot with Ruston being able to do a lot of stuff up front and
Absolutely.
staying in front of the chains and not hurting themselves, keeping the ball away from Lafayette Christian, and having sustained drives. But Jared Baugh in Ruston, they've played Warren Easton. They haven't Jesuit. They hadn't shied away from competition either, like
Absolutely.
Lafayette Christian. And those are fun games to watch if you're not coaching in them.
Yeah, so Lafayette Christian, they their first three games they beat a good Acadiana team that's really rolling right now. They beat a talented Woodlawn of Baton Rouge team, which I think is they're still kind of flying under the radar. They're 2-2, but they got a lot of talent on their team. And then last week, Todd, they beat Jesuit 28-25. That was the school out of New Orleans. And then on the flip side, Ruston, they've played Warren Easton. They lost in overtime to Warren Easton. They've played Jesuit as well. They played Cabot, Arkansas, beat them on a last second field goal. So, I mean, both of these schools, did not lack any sort of competition on their schedule leading up to this game. And but yeah, I mean, like I said, maybe this was a kind of a wake-up call for Lafayette Christian. Hey, we finally got these big games out of the way. We've learned what we need to learn. Now let's apply it going forward. I think they got a pretty big game against a 3-1 Avoyelles team that's pretty competitive as well, and in a run team almost like Ruston. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
And you wonder if Avoyelles up front can match the size of what Lafayette Christian has. And I think Ruston could. Avoyelles is not as big a school, and they like to do things a little bit different. So that's going to be the task for Avoyelles, is can they match up in the trenches with Lafayette Christian? Because they're listed as 4A, but I think those boys are big enough to be classified as 5A when you start talking about heights and weights and that type of thing.
Well, and I think I want to say Avoyelles lost a little bit on defense from last year. So I know they've been trying to build the defensive unit up as they've gone. Their only losses to a good Turlings team, who actually beat St. Charles last week and Notre Dame this week. So, and I think that's the first time in 11 years Turlings has beaten Notre Dame. So hats off to the Rebels over there. They've got it going. They're one of those teams they're still undefeated. I don't think they're another one that kind of flies below the radar a little bit throughout the year.
You want to say that two North Louisiana guys trying to say Coach Chapanche?
I wasn't even going to try to say it. That's why I called them by their mascot.
Hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Hey, but I tell you what, their quarterback that they have though, Turlings, he's just really good. Competed at the state track meet as in javelin. So he's just really competitive and knows what it takes to win. So again, congrats to Turlings. They've got it going on over there too in the Lafayette area. But before we move on,
do. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say, they really do, and they've got it going on both sides of the ball, and that's what's kind of unique, I think, about what they're doing this year is that you have a very good Notre Dame team who's always very sound, and St. Charles Catholic, another one that's always they're going to be sound on both sides of the ball. So when you're playing them back to back and you're able to beat them, I mean, it's saying a lot about your team. They're fundamentally sound, and they're a little bit more special than they have been in years past, because those are two very, very well coached teams that they came out on top of. And that's something that, it's got to really be recognized for their coaching staff as well as their players.
Absolutely. In Class 3A, Union Parish beat Bastrop 62-12. And the reason we bring that game up is we had a very special moment in Louisiana high school football history occur in that game, as Trey Hawley became the all-time rushing king in high school football on Friday night. He surpassed, and this is the North Louisiana coming out of me again, surpassed Nick Broget. Is that right?
Nick Brosette.
Brosette. Okay, I'm sorry. He surpassed Nick Brosette's previous mark of 8,704 yards with a 274-yard performance against against the Rams, and he capped it off with a touchdown run that actually helped set the record. So Todd, we still got 6 weeks remaining in the regular season. We still got the playoffs. I can only imagine what Trey Holly is going to do to this record by the time the season ends. Can he get to 10,000? And will this ever be a mark that anybody else could ever set or break?
There is a lot of things that have to go right for a guy to be able to rush for that many yards. Yeah, is he special? Sure. But he can't do it without a line up front.
That's right.
And so he's had 4 years of guys up front blocking for him that's enabled him to have 2,000 plus yard seasons. And yep, he's a good back. But those guys up front, it's hard to put so there's a lot of chemistry that goes together to have an offensive line and a good one. And so to be able to have that for 4 years in a row is a compliment to Coach Spatafora and also to Trey, because I'm sure, I saw A.J. Samuel today from Carr commenting his offensive line. That's a smart young man. He's the quarterback for there, and he's got to do that. And so that offensive line and defensive line are the bread and butter of a team. And so for Trey Holly to be able to get that many yards and possibly get that many more, things have to fall right. And they have for him and Union Parish. They've been in the finals, the last 2 years.
Yep.
Lost to Madison Prep and lost a tough one to Sterlington last year. And they got another good chance at getting there again.
Absolutely. And I've talked to Trey a couple times and here and there, and just really good kid. He's humble, a yes sir, no sir type kid, which, I feel like LSU's getting a really good representative for the state. And, for LSU to have the all-time, well, now they've got the 2 all-time leading rushers, because Nick actually went to LSU after he left University Labs. So just a testament to Louisiana high school football and what Trey's been able to do to really promote our state. With all this national recruiting and committing to LSU and going to play thereafter. And actually, Trey, the good thing about Trey is he also plays defense too. So this kid is playing both ways, and he breaks, a mark that's been almost a decade, and doing it while playing both ways. It's so awesome, and good. Congratulations, Trey, on the mark. And man, we're just proud of you, and can't wait to see what you do, not only this year, but at the college level in the future.
It's community too. That's another thing that, you talk about bringing attention to Louisiana, but especially to, Union Parish and that community up there, all small towns, they love their football, like
Absolutely.
Where you're from, where I'm from. And there's nothing better than to see a team have, that type of success. And, congratulations. And like you said, will he get to 10,000? Wow. You never know, but I think he can get to 9. If Union Parish is going to be, if they're going to make a run, he's going to be probably somewhere around that 9,500 yard mark.
Yeah,
does that mean he have about 9 more games? Yeah,
I'm looking at
about another
right
200.
now.
If he's averaging about 200 a game, well, man, he might get there, Hunter.
So to reach 10,000, he needs to rush for 1,293 more yards. And again, that's with 6 games remaining in the regular season, plus a possible 4 or 5 games in the state playoffs. So, and I think he's averaging 250 a game. So, I mean,
yeah, that looks good.
It looks good. So man, that would be so awesome. So awesome. Anyways, some other games around the state. Manny and Newman. Everybody knew that was going to be a close one. And Todd, I'm going to get on my soapbox here for just a few minutes, because I followed the game Friday night as best as I could. Back and forth game. I know Newman and Arch Manning struggled a little bit offensively there at the beginning, but finally got it going. I just saw some comments on social media, the day or two after the game, um, and everybody from the national media all the way down to just people on social media who probably shouldn't be on social media talking because they don't know what they're talking about. Um, Kind of ripping Arch, and really the big headline was, Arch doesn't have a good night, or Arch struggles, or Arch. My first thought is not taking anything away from Arch, but maybe it was just because he went up a bit against a damn good defense Friday night. Because Manny is one of the most talented football teams in the state. It just kind of boggled my mind, like, guys, he's just a human being. I know his last name is Manning, but when you go up against a tough defense like that, you're gonna have a struggle. You're not gonna throw for 500 or 600 yards in the game, and that's why I think we just get lost in all the glamour and the glitz and everything, and it all comes down to offense and defense. And if you've got a good offense going up against a really good defense, you're not going to have 500-600 yard passing games. You're not going to have a 50-60 point ball game. What you got Friday night was a hell of a football game between two good teams. It just kind of pained me the way they were taken away from Arch, when really, I mean, he went into a dogfight. And yeah, I hate it for Arch, because there's a lot of he gets a lot of bad publicity sometimes.
A lot of haters.
When things like this happen. But I also hate it for a team like Manny, who comes out with a good game plan and stops a really good offensive team, and not just Arch. I mean, they have a lot of good players on that team, on that offense. They were missing Will Randall the other night, but I mean, I don't know. It just kind of pained me.
Will Randall is a big target for him, and he's a big a defensive player also for Newman. But it all started at the beginning of the year when they're saying, Ricky Collins, and when people start trying to compare Ricky Collins, Arch Manning, and the Zachary quarterback,
Eli, yeah,
and Holstein, and they're all 18, 17 years old. They're
Absolutely.
all very talented.
Yep.
And one night separates one from the other. And you can't use a blanket term and say so-and-so's better than so-and-so, because on any given night,
that's correct.
For instance, the way they came back against Benton the week before,
yeah,
they're kids, and they're going to have good games and they're going to have bad games. Sometimes it's the environment that affects them. But I think Jess Curtis said it well, said, yeah, they won, but he really feels both teams got better to be in an environment like that was right there, and to be in a dogfight like it was there. And, the fact that they were sold out at 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon is pretty cool too.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, like I said, at the end of the day, we just got to realize these are high school kids. I know that two of them have been highly recruited and are going to really good schools, really good football programs. But at the end of the day, just enjoy the fact that you got to witness a damn good football game between two really good teams, and just forget about the freaking rankings and who's going where. Believe it or not, football, there is good football outside of New Orleans. The whole state of Louisiana has really good football, and I think that gets lost sometimes too. Like I said, that Benton team, they're good. I mean, they've got a good quarterback, good receivers, and Newman saw that, and they knew that. And I knew going into the Manny game, it was going to be a struggle. It wasn't going to be a 60-50 point game like it was the week before. So anyways, that's just my thing. Like, people just hate on Arch when he doesn't throw for 300 to 400 yards. Dang, Tackett Curtis is not the number one linebacker in the state or in the country for no reason at all. And Manny is not 4-0 for just no reason at all. They played some freaking good teams. They got a good team coming back and probably going to compete for a state championship if they play their cards right. So, anyways, I get off my soapbox, but just remember these are kids. They're trying to enjoy their freaking high school careers before they go off to bigger and better things. So, but anyways, before we move on, I will say this. I commend both Jess Curtis and Nelson Stewart for putting that game together, because that's a game you would love to see in the Superdome. But because of the current circumstances, that won't happen. But that was a state championship type atmosphere and game Friday night.
So I'm going to pick up on your soapbox a little bit, because I've posted this twice, and it's about high school kids having bad nights, and the adults in the stands are criticizing them and, blasting them. And it's just, there should be a mutual courtesy that goes on in these games, and understand that kid, they're not getting paid, but they're being taught to be a young man and handle adversity and be able to better themselves by being out there and giving their best effort.
Correct.
Sometimes their best effort is going to be a little short, but you know what? That's not up to you in the stands to sit there and do that. Right. And all those people in the stands have to think about, if somebody criticized their kid, how would they act? And I can tell you right now, they wouldn't act very good. But the point being is, whether it's a coach, whether it's a kid, or even an official, we've got to take things more balanced and understand that these guys aren't out there against trying to do anything to our team. That's and right. What's going to end up happening is you're not going to have as many officials out there. You continue to have these fights that go on, and things have got to be harnessed a little bit and controlled. And it starts with us as adults to be able to lead the way. And if we can't lead the way as adults, then how do we expect our kids to do it? So, have some respect for the people around you and be a little bit smarter and courteous and understand what's going on.
Absolutely.
In the stands.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just amazing. You just enjoy the moment. You got to see two of the best players in the country go at it, and man, I wish I could have been there. But anyways, moving on. Todd, before we get to some off the field stuff, I just want to make a couple more mentions from Friday night. Ringgold High School, Class 1A school up in Northwest Louisiana, broke a 20-game losing streak the other night in a 36-34 overtime win over Plain Dealing. Last time the Redskins had won was back in 2019. So just for a small Class 1A school, and they were in our district when I was in Haynesville. They were in our district, and God bless them. Even when we would go play at Ringgold, they hardly had any fans in the stand, just not a lot of support. Now, the coach they do have there now, he's been there for a couple of years, and him and his brother are the head basketball coach and the head football coach. So they're really committed to that school. They're trying to get the culture back there a little bit, a winning culture. But anyways, just a small shout out to them. I know that was a long time coming, and they enjoyed that in overtime. How awesome was that? And
Hunter, if you remember the picture that went around a couple of years ago, and they were senior night. I think it was senior night, and there were stands, the home team stands. There was nobody there.
Yeah,
that was Ringgold, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, you're right. I do remember that.
And so, just to let you know, because I think a lot of people saw that, and, to have that win, and congratulations to North Central, who was on a long losing streak, and they've now won 2 in a row. So, hey, we're on a streak again.
Yeah. North Central is one of those other programs. I think that they had reached almost 40 straight losses, and they broke that last week, and then got another win this past week. And, Jacob, the head coach down there, he's from North Louisiana as well, and coached at Glenbrook and Homer for a while, and just bringing a winning attitude to that program, and again, just building that culture, and that's all it takes. It just takes a little commitment, somebody who really cares, who wants to win. So, anyways, congratulations to those guys.
correct me if I'm wrong on this. Didn't North Central win the boys state championship with a female coach a couple years back?
I think so. I want to
I'm pretty.
say so.
That was
Th-
pretty cool because
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
almost certain it was.
Yeah,
But I
and
think
then
it's pretty cool.
North Central, that school is so talented because I mean they won the Class 1A state championship in basketball and boys basketball this past year. So they've got athletes at that school. I mean that's a really good situation to have over there, and to be able to have that translate onto the football field with somebody who's able to make that commitment and stick around and build that program. That just goes to show you it seems like maybe he has support from the top, which that means a whole lot in situations like that.
Absolutely.
So, but anyways, just some quick other notes. Westgate, they've reached 12 straight wins. They have the longest winning streak in the state right now. They're followed by Glenbrook at 10, and then St. Martin's Episcopal at 5. So that's the 3 longest winning streaks in the state right now. This just goes to show you just how crazy this season's been already. Zachary's lost, and a couple other schools. So, but yeah,
You know who's playing Westgate this Friday?
I have not looked at this.
Magnolia School of Excellence. Yikes. That was not a smart schedule by coach.
Yeah, I wonder about that because Westgate also played. I'm sorry, excuse me. Lake Charles Prep also played Magnolia School of Excellence, and looking at those schedules, it almost makes me think they could not find another game. That being Lake Charles Prep and Westgate, and Magnolia said, "Hey, look, we'll fill the schedule." Yeah, no, it's got to be a tough situation. And I think Magnolia will travel down to Westgate, but Lake Charles Prep, they traveled up to Shreveport to play that game. And that's another program that's I think this is their second or third year. So they actually just got their own football field this year on their campus. So they're still building that program. But anyways, Westgate still the top 4A team until somebody knocks them off, but they have a tough district because they're in that district with I think they're in that district with St. Thomas More and Lafayette Christian and all of them. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yes, indeed.
Todd, let's get to some off the field stuff. And this still pertains to week 4. Edna Carr posted a convincing win Saturday night. I think the final score was like 49-7 or 49-14 or something like that, against a St. Augustine team who upset number 1 Zachary last week. Now, the reason we bring this up is it was announced Friday that per the LHSA website, the first 3 wins or the first 3 games on Edna Carr's schedule had been changed to forfeits. Christopher Dabe with the New Orleans Advocate later reported that it was due to a clerical error by the administration having to deal with an ineligible player. I think the school was notified Monday, if I read that right. So, anyways, leading to the 3 forfeits, Edna Carr had over. I'll have to look. I think it was Warren Easton. Hold on, I got it right here real quick. It was it was over LB Landry, Scotlandville, and Warren Easton. So those 3 schools will get a win back after that forfeit. But anyways, that was Friday. Edna Carr played Saturday night against St. Augustine. So just goes to show you that Edna Carr was a little bit more motivated Saturday night. Todd, just some quick thoughts on the situation. Obviously, this affects their PowerPoints. I looked yesterday; they had fallen from 6 all the way to dead last in the PowerPoints. That was before the game last night. I think they moved up a little bit, but something like this not only affects the kids, but it affects your positioning in what is now a condensed playoff bracket, and can really kind of put a negative effect on your season. If you can't keep the kids focused and just say, hey, look, dealt a bad hand, let's keep going.
So last year, towards the end of the year, I think it was Booker T. Washington I think it was De La Salle and maybe a couple other teams that had this same audit, and it cost them a lot of games. So in a way, I'm sure Ed Carr is glad it happened in week 3 and not week 8. Does it seem like a harsh penalty? It is if it's truly a mistake. But there's been many that aren't a truly a mistake. Last year, there was one that had an overall D, but in the first semester, he had an F. In the second semester, he had an F for an overall D. What? So, I've always said rules are made for almost 1% of the population, right?
Right.
But unfortunately, everybody's got to follow them or someone's going to take advantage of them. And I think this particular player wasn't one of the starters. And, I know for a fact, that like there's a lot of things that are in the rule books that, that Mr. Bonan and I have talked about in the past that he doesn't particularly like. And I think if I recall correctly, this is one of them, because more or less the young man didn't have an impact on the game. I don't know if he's a sophomore or what, but I think that I really don't know what the right answer is in some of these circumstances where you truly believe it was a genuine mistake. Do people get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to this? Probably not. No, they knew what they were doing. But if he's a third string guy and he's got a 1.35 opposed to a 1.5,
right?
What's, and Bryce Brown has never come across to me as someone that looks to get an advantage. He doesn't need to. It's not like, he's there because
it doesn't happen every year.
Really,
It doesn't happen every year. It's not like Ed Carr is getting popped every year for something like this.
Right. And if you ever hear him speak, he very seldom speaks about the X's and O's, or he talks about what he hopes to accomplish. He
Absolutely.
understands that New Orleans is in a bad spot right now with murders. And so he knows that. I think he lost the kid actually last year, but he knows it's bigger than football. And he and Jerry Phillips and those guys down there do such an amazing job because they get the big picture. And they're great football coaches, but they're great football coaches because they're mentors to these young men who really need it. They teach them the game of football, and they try to teach them to stay on the right path. And if I had to guess, I would say it was a mistake by Ed Carr. And but maybe they'll appeal it and they can prove it was a mistake and things work out. But he's a good man. He's a good coach, and just from that reason, Hunter, I'd just give him the benefit of the doubt.
Let me pose a question to you, Todd, because this has been brought up to me a couple times in situations like this where a school's been forced to forfeit games because of an ineligible player. A lot of people have asked, if you really wanted to stop, ban them from the postseason. What's your take on that?
Is it fair? I would say, so let's say they go, they win 5 games. What if the ineligible player is their star quarterback? Opposed to someone that is a third string. And, the first 5 they played, the quarterback threw for 200, ran for 100, and had 5 touchdowns, but he wasn't supposed to be out there. Is it fair to those other kids on that team who do have the right, who've done things the right way? And I think that's it's not really just all about that kid. It's about the other kids he's played against. And then if those kids come up to Mr. Bonan and say, hey, Mr. Bonan, I've got a 3.0, I'm eligible, but yet there's a guy that's ineligible and we didn't make the playoffs because he was playing against us. How do you answer that if you're in, a coach's position or Mr. Bonan's position? And, I think that's why it has to be as it is. And I get to, ban them from the playoffs, but it's not, that's why, I wouldn't want to be Mr. Bonan. Things are not easy at the LHSAA office because of questions like you just posed. And that's why I think it takes someone from outside of that circumstance to be able to handle it. Because anytime you get emotional in any type of conflict or uh, disagreement,
Absolutely.
things get out of hand. And I just think they do a great job. But ultimately, I would say it's not always about the kid that wasn't eligible. Sometimes it's about the ones that have done the right thing. And is it fair to punish them?
Yeah.
And I just think I don't think it is, even though, it's a harsh penalty.
Well, and that's the thing, no two cases are ever the same situation either, or no two situations are ever the same. So I think that's what people don't. I think that's what people don't understand. It's not like a cookie cutter, like every single thing is going to be. You can't just do that for every situation is different. But I've had people bring that up to me. Why not just ban them from the playoffs? Maybe that'll make them stop. Well, not in the car situation. If that's the case, maybe it was just a oopsie, an upset, a clerical error, a mistake. Don't punish the team, the rest of the team, for something that an admin did. If they need to forfeit their wins, okay, understand that. But to ban them from the postseason in general, unless it's just something like outrageous, very like just just done on purpose and out in the open. Maybe in that situation, I don't know, but yeah, I've had that posed to me the last couple of years, and I've just never been a supporter of that. Only because, like you said, it's not just about that one person. It's about the whole situation, including the other kids from the other side. So
here's something else to take in consideration too, from an athletic department. So like, I know there are several compliance, like in several of the bigger schools, so maybe Dutchtown, they have more than one assistant athletic director to help with compliance.
right.
You look at Dutchtown, okay, they've got probably 175 or 150 just football players.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at volleyball. These guys have got to enter it all: track, cross country, wrestling, basketball, softball, baseball.
And it's not just varsity.
Right. It's not just varsity. And, if you're doing data entry, if I did it, there'd be 45,000 kids ineligible because I wouldn't get it right. But you're going to have mistakes. And I'm sure there's a checks and balances of some sort. But just imagine having to enter all of that.
Yeah.
That's
a
lot.
And let's look at it from another point too. So, as a voter on the LSWA weekly high school football polls, there was I had seen some comments made that in the cars, they were 0-3 before the game, but 1-3 now. They had to forfeit their games. They cheated, so they shouldn't be considered one of the top teams in the class anymore. Well, more than likely, whoever that one player or players was, I promise you, on a team like Edna Carr, that loaded and that talented, one player is not going to make that much of a difference to punish that team. And that's what we going back earlier, to punish that team, to make them drop from a poll that, people, come on. It's first of all, it's just a poll to begin with. It's something to have a conversation about. And hey, look, I love doing it. I get a kick out of it. I love to see what the other sports writers around the state think. But to take away stuff like that from these kids, that again wasn't the kids' fault. I told somebody, I said, I'm gonna still vote them number one, especially after what they did to St. Augustine last night. They're still my number one team in Class 5A. And that it's just another, that's just another thing I just don't agree with. At the end of the day, we got to do what's best for the student athletes, and that's Mr. Bonon's number one objective. But from a sports writer standpoint, from a parent standpoint, from an educator standpoint, you got to have that same mindset too. And don't base opinions but don't base opinions off of situations you really don't know the whole situation about. Because, like I said, this kid may not even see the field except for JV games. So, anyways, yeah. I don't like that. I don't like when people say, well, they should be punished all the way. Da 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 da. No, that's not the case. It's not the case, especially if it's a situation where, again, it was a clerical error that was made before the season, before any of these kids even touched the field.
So let me make this point too. It's so the LHSAA, right? It's a principals organization, as the principals like to say when things are going well. They are responsible for everyone underneath them to understand the rules completely and fully. It's a part of the Constitution, like on the first page. I can't quote it to you, but I know it's there. So when things go wrong, it's up. The principal lacked the communication somewhere down the line to be able to get it to, the right people.
Right.
So, it's not all people want to talk about the LHSA a lot. It's like on the recruiting, that when a kid transfers from one school to another, both principals have got to sign off on this concurrence form. And the job is to, when I sign off, I'm saying, all right, he's good to go.
Yeah.
There's an incident between Wassman and Carroll a couple of years ago where Wassman wouldn't sign off on it. And as soon as they wouldn't sign off for it, the LHSA launched an investigation. And that's how it works. So, there's a lot of blame to go around, but eventually, if they want to be the Principals Association, which they say they are, then they've got to be more accountable to some of the things that go on the field and off the field.
Absolutely. And Edna Carr was not the only team to receive bad news. According to some sources that I have up in the Shreveport area, Southwood, who was they're 2-2 on the season, but they had started out the season 2-0. I've heard that they're going to have to forfeit their first two games due to a situation similar to what Edna Carr is going through right now. So again, that's not confirmed. That's just things that I've heard from some sources up there in the Shreveport area that's close to that situation. So I guess we'll may hear something. And this was all, guys. This was all late Friday afternoon. The LHSA closes early on. I think they close at 3 on Fridays. So I'm sure we won't hear most of that information until maybe tomorrow or later in the week. But like I said, just you hate to see that. But again, like you said, at the end of the day, rules are rules. You got to follow them whether you like them or not. So, anyways, but Todd, any other Week 4 stuff again that just kind of crossed your mind or caught your attention? Anything that just stood out to you?
Let's see. I think Kittenwood over Walker.
Huge for the Kangaroos as far as power ratings go. For those who may not know really what the power ratings are for, so you get points for playing up in class.
Explain that.
Yeah, so you get points for playing up in class. So Kenwood's a 1A team. They moved back to 1A this year, and Walker's a 5A team. So even before they even stepped on the field, Kenwood got 8 points just for playing Walker, which is huge, by the way. Then they won, so they get 10 points on top of the 8. Then you get the amount of wins for your opponent. I'm not sure. I think Walker has.
They were 3-1. I think they're 3-0 going into that.
That's right. They were both undefeated. So they get 3 of Walker's points plus however many more wins. So as far as the power ratings go, that was huge for Kentwood. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Todd, but I just wanted people to know how big that something like that is. So
a couple others you mentioned earlier, but the way they did it, Turlings over Notre Dame, 38-14. I thought Scotlandville did everything they could. They played well and could have hung on up there to beat West Monroe, but West Monroe wins. And then Brother Martin was impressive with their win over Washita at Washita 38-20.
And Washita has really improved over the last couple of years, so that was a really good win for Brother Martin.
Pearl River 4-0.
That's right.
Look, I don't think they have a junior or a senior starting on the offensive line. They beat Independence 46-14. Hammond is 4-0
And
with the win over Fountain Blue.
Pearl River plays Newman this week, by the way.
That's a heat check.
You got that right.
So, but I think it was a good week 4, and I think there's some good games coming up in week 5 for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, just going over week 5. This is just some games that stood out. And to me, like we mentioned earlier, Mangum plays Oak Grove. Oak Grove taking care of business down the stretch. They lost to Washita Christian early in one of the earlier weeks. And Mangum's rolling right now too. They beat General Trash 62-26, I believe was the final score in that game last week. Neville plays Ruston this week. Whoa, what a game! Neville is, Neville is in Todd being from Neville. He may have more insight than me, but Neville lost a lot from last year, and they've struggled a little bit to open the season, but had a really convincing win against. I mean, a lot of people may laugh at this, but they had a convincing win against a good North Caddo team that is led by Omarion Miller, who is an LSU commit. So very good wide receiver, really, really potent offense for North Caddo. So that was a good win for Neville. But can Neville catch up with Ruston? I mean, Ruston's had some testy battles over the last couple weeks. So I mean, can Neville sneak in there and get a win?
They're catching them on a good week, that's for sure.
That's
because
true.
They're coming, with Lafayette Christian.
That's right. Lafayette Christian with versus Avoyles. They're actually going to Avoyles for that game. That's going to be one to watch. Here's a game, Ty, that stood out. Dunham and Southern Lab. Yep. Dunham has performed really well over the last couple of weeks. Neil Weiner has got them rolling. Southern Lab, again, just a Class 1A mainstay. They're always beating good teams, higher classification teams. That's going to be a good game to keep an eye on.
And I'll talk because you may say something about Ascension Catholic Episcopal because that's going to be good. But yeah. Dunham last week played Ascension Catholic, and Dunham had all but the game won.
That's right.
They had to punt at midfield. They snap it over the punter's head. Long story short, with seconds left, Ascension Catholic goes in to go 20-19. 20-19, yep. And then they went for a 2-point play. And they tried to run the old Statue of Liberty, and Dunham's defense held up and got a big win over Ascension Catholic. And Dunham's good, and so is Ascension Catholic. And Ascension Catholic Episcopal will be a good matchup this week too.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm just going through a couple other.
I'll give you White Castle and Catholic Point Capee is another one in those lower classifications that I think is going to be a good battle.
And both of those teams, I think, are ranked in our Go Preps polls that we just released this evening. So that's Catholic PC, definitely a team that's always in the playoff picture every year, and should be a good game.
What's your thoughts on Grand Lake?
Grand Lake. They made the jump up to 2A this year. They were, it almost seemed like they were getting it rolling in Class 1A and could have been maybe a top contender for the state title and, before all the playoff restructuring. Grand Lake is something, I got to look at their schedule. They
got East Beauregard this week, but they're 4-0, right?
Grand Lake's 4-0. Hold on, I'm trying to get to it. So Grand Lake has beaten Hamilton Christian, Westminster, Pickering. Not really good teams. They don't really have good records, but they dominated them on the scoreboard. And then they beat Oakdale, a good Oakdale team, 26-20 in overtime last week. So got tested a little bit. Is that something, East Beauregard's another team in that 1A class that they're usually kind of in that playoff mix at the end of the year too. Can East Beauregard maybe take advantage of some things they saw against Oakdale? But I tell you what, we're really going to see in 2 weeks because Grand Lake plays Welsh, who is just on fire right now, 3-0. then they also have to play Notre Dame as well in that district. So we're going to see what Grand Lake's made of later in the year.
Grand Lake's got Notre Dame, huh? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah. Notre Dame's in that district, that 2A district with it's Welsh, Lake Arthur, Vinton, DeQuincy, and Grand Lake, along with Notre Dame. So it's usually been Welsh and Notre Dame have been the top two in that district the last couple of years, but now you add Grand Lake to the mix. But yeah, Grand Lake and East Beauregard, I think that's a good game. East Beauregard is always competitive, and I was trying to see what East Beauregard
East
beat
Boat.
somebody. Yeah, they beat Gaydon, who was undefeated last week, so they beat them 56-30. And so, anyways, yeah. And then the only other game I had on my was St. James and Woodlawn of Baton Rouge. I think that's going to be a good game as well.
Woodlawn got away. Edie White really gave them everything they wanted, and Woodlawn and Ricky Collins had to come back late to pull that one off. It was Woodlawn was lucky to get that win, but you mentioned earlier they're still trying to find their stride, and they may have got a little bit closer to that in the second half of that Edie White game, because Edie White is solid, and look, they got a chip on their shoulder from last year's championship game. I think they're more disappointed that UHigh's in a different division than they are, because they would love to have played them in the championship game again. But I looked at you've got down in New Orleans, you got Scotlandville Rummel, you got Brother Martin Carr, Holy Cross John Curtis. And see, this is what you get to do on a plane, is you get to look at high school games. So that's what I was doing. But
what do you think about De La Salle and East Ascension?
Oof. Now, East Ascension, man, they lose to Alexandria 28-21.
Yeah.
But they've played
West Monroe.
They played Zachary. They played
Destrehan.
That's it, Destrehan.
So they've played. So I'm looking at it right now. So they've played Zachary, West Monroe, Destrehan, and Alexandria. So combined opponents' record is 11-4 between those four teams. That's who East Ascension's played the last 4 weeks. They beat West Monroe 16-10 on the road, by the way, at West Monroe. Lost to Zachary 35-13, lost to Destrehan 42-2, and then lost to Alexandria last week. So,
what's Alexandria's combined record of the people they played?
Alexandria, I don't know, because they've played some good teams as well.
Yes, they have.
Alexandria's played Karen Crow, St. Thomas More, Natchitoches Central, and East Ascension.
Okay, yeah.
So mean,
probably EA's a little bit stronger, but still.
EA's a little stronger.
Mm-hmm.
But Alexandria is another one of those teams. They don't back down every year. They play some really good opponents as well. And I tell you what, Todd, Alexandria is on that select side, the Division I, which is going to be one freaking loaded bracket. But I tell you what, I think Alexandria is one of those teams. I think they're really going to be okay in that division. I think they're going to be able to compete against some of those teams because they play them every year and they compete against them and they win sometimes, most of the time. So, I'd love to see an Alexandria and a John Curtis go head to head. I think that would be an excellent matchup.
Well, and they've got the coaching staff that each week you watch them, they get better, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good coaches in Louisiana, don't get me wrong. But Alexandria, doesn't get a whole lot of credit. Coach Bachman's in the middle of the state. People look at their record, and you can't take them lightly because they're going to be ready to play. They're going to be prepared, and they're going to give you everything they got. And that's a compliment to their players and their coaches,
Well, and the thing about Alexandria is, look, guys, they're in a district with West Monroe, Ouachita, Ruston, and West Ouachita is actually doing well this year. And Coach Bachman's still scheduling these pre-district games that, against some of the top teams in the state. So that goes to show you, he's not lollygagging around. He's not going up against teams that he can get easy wins. He's preparing his squad for what's coming, and that's that Division I select playoff bracket, because you're going to be playing teams like that every week in the playoff bracket. So
He might have could have scheduled that team that went over to Stephen F. Austin and lost 98-0.
And probably done the same thing to him.
Do you know that they took a charter bus? That was a 17-hour trip from Lake Wales, Florida to Nacogdoches, Texas. And then you lose 98-0 and you're back on the charter bus.
I can't even imagine. I just, yeah, I don't know. Games like that at the collegiate level, I just should not be scheduled. But that's an argument for another day. But
I hate to bring it up, sorry.
oh no, you're good. No, it's just amazing. But anyways, but yeah, no, that De La Salle East Ascension. Don't look at East Ascension's record and go, oh well, that's going to be an easy win. I don't think it is at all. And that's it at East Ascension this week. So and De La Salle is they're pretty talented again this year. So and then Carver plays Dutchtown. So you got a couple New Orleans schools coming over to Baton Rouge this week.
Yep. And Kentwood and they meet.
Kenwood and they meet. They play
That's
every year,
gonna be
right?
interesting. Huh?
That's a parish rivalry, right? They're in the same
Yep.
parish. Yeah.
They're right next to each other.
A meet defending state champion Class 2A. They beat Manny last year in the Dome, so that just
right.
goes to show you how good that program is. I'm just looking around a couple to make sure we haven't missed anything. I don't want to forget nobody, so if we do, I'm sorry. Tweet at Coach Black ESPN for all your comments and concerns on
I will
that
give
one.
a shout out to Bogalusa. I think they're a
Bogalusa.
team that's going to be pretty good when it all when things settle here in November. I think you're going to find them battling it out.
And Bogalusa is one of those teams that could easily be 4-0 as well. I think their only loss, I don't think it was.
Maybe Slidell.
I think
I'm
it
just
was
thinking off the top of-
Slidell. I think it was Slidell. Yeah, here it is right here. They lost to Slidell 18-24 or 24-18.
Mhm.
So I mean, easily there were score with them being 4-0 on the year. They've played Franklinton, Salmon, and they beat John Ehret, a Class 5A team. They've beaten or they've played two 5A teams, and then they'll play Chalmette Friday night. Oh, they play
Yep.
Chalmette Friday night, Todd, and then they'll play A-Meet next week. So I think that's what this says. But
Yeah,
anyways,
it's Chalmette this week. Yeah.
okay. So yeah, Coach Crutchfield, man, he's just been a winner everywhere he's gone. South Plaquemine, Sulphur, St. Augustine, anywhere he's gone, he's just built a program and got it winning. So again, and they're in that division where they could compete. They could compete well for maybe for a state championship come November and December. So
They were one of the ones that were in select and got pushed back over to
that's right.
non-select.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, but yeah, guys, that was just some recaps from this past week and looking into to week 5. I promise you, we're going to try to have a guest on here starting next week. I've struck out the last couple of times, and that's been my fault. So hopefully we'll get some we're going to try to get some coaches on, and we're trying to get Mr. Bonan from the LHSA on here soon, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the playoff restructuring and things like that. But anyway, so Todd, before we leave, any final thoughts heading into week 5?
Let's get through a week without any bench clearing brawls. I think that's going to really put a
Yeah.
damper on some people's season. If you're not sure, we're talking about McKinley and Northside, and we know the coach. I know the coach at McKinley. Northside. We know they're both good coaches. So I don't know what happened that it transpired there, but regardless, it just needs to stop. It needs to stop. High school sports is not about that, and that's just
Right.
That's the one thing that I think the things that are happening on the field. We got a lot of great football,
Absolutely.
a lot of special talent, and you got to get out there and support your local team.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you hate to see situations like that. And, the game was canceled after that. I think they were a few minutes into the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Excuse me. But, and it was McKinley's homecoming that night too. So no homecoming festivities took place that night. And you just hate it for the kids and the families involved and the administrations involved.
The homecoming court didn't even get introduced.
No, it didn't even reach halftime. Yeah,
Man.
I hate that. So, again, there's still a lot of unknowns about that situation as far as what's going to occur. If you go on the Advocate, Robin Fambrough, the great Robin Fambrough, the Hall of Famer, has a really good story kind of detailing the situation and basically how it's in the LHSAA's hands as far as forfeitures and when you leave the sideline in a bench clearing brawl, you are disqualified for the next week. So
No questions
technically,
asked.
McKinley and Northside, depending on what the LHSA rules this week, they may have to forfeit their games for this Friday for whoever they play. Now, again, Lee Sanders was quoted in there that they had to go and watch the tape over again, and there were several. I think there were several videos that were taken. Got to see what started it, what instigated it, how it happened, who left, what. So there's still a lot to be determined on that, but again, at the end of the night, guys, it's all about the kids, and you know, I hate that both teams were involved in that. And again, I know emotion runs high in contests, but guys, you got to keep your composure. It's not about you; it's about the team, and it's about the one ultimate goal, and that is to win. So I know that's hard to do, but you gotta be able to do it, or you're gonna punish yourself and the team for
That's right.
maybe not just a game, but several games, depending on the severity of the brawl.
And usually in life, if you can't control your emotions, things aren't very positive either. So
That's
it
right.
all correlates.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think everybody involved has to understand. They've got to learn. I'd much rather them learn in high school and in a football game than out on the
Yeah.
street, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Anyways, guys, we appreciate y'all tuning in again. We've had several reach out and tell us that they like what they're hearing. So Todd, that makes me feel good. Like I said, we're gonna try to get some guests on in the coming weeks, and we're gonna try to get a lot of coaches on as we get closer to the playoffs, and then get their thoughts on their positioning in the power ratings and how they see the brackets playing out. Before we go, I just got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Chevyland. Chevyland in Shreveport is the #1 new and used vehicle dealership in the area. If you live outside of Shreveport-Bossier, it's no problem. Chevyland offers free delivery anywhere in the state of Louisiana with the purchase of a new Chevrolet. And also, don't forget about the Chevyland Advantage, which is no charge scheduled maintenance for the first year or 12,000 miles with the purchase of a new vehicle. Chevyland is family owned and operated since 1962. So go visit Bubba and Charlie and the gang at 7500 Uri Drive in Shreveport. Or if you can't make it, go on the web, shop, click, drive, Chevyland.com. And Chevyland is where they care about you, Chevyland.com. Be sure to go check them out and support them as they have supported us from day one. So appreciate Bubba and the crew for another year of high school football on GoPreps.com.
Shreveport lost a nice establishment that had been there for a long time in Humphreys, I think. Was it Friday or Thursday?
It was
in a big fire.
Yeah, it was
That's
close to
been
the weekend. Yeah, it was close to the weekend. I saw that one of the news stations up there tweeted that out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's I think the Blind Tiger. That's where it was near. It's another restaurant, another establishment that it's kind of known to the area for a long time. So, but yeah, like I said, go visit them, Chevyland.com or 7500 Uri Drive in Shreveport. Make the trip over there. It'll be well worth it. Todd, again, thank you for another week. I'm excited, ready for week 5 to get here. That just means 1 week closer to the Superdome and 1 week closer to the state championship. So,
hey, look for me on the Weather Channel.
Look for Todd on the Weather Channel. He may be out in the hurricane this week. So, anyway, safe travels to Todd. You'll be back before Friday before Friday
Tuesday.
Show? Oh, he'll be back Tuesday. Perfect. Perfect. So he'll even be out of the way of all that. So, anyways,
absolutely right.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate it. Thank y'all so much, and we will talk to y'all next weekend.